Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies wrapped up an undefeated 3-0 road trip with a 120-103 victory over the Dallas Mavericks. This game was inspiring. It was an all-around great team win. Taylor Jenkins said after the game he was thrilled with how the team rallied together. This was the first game, of course, since all of us and the team found out that Ja Morant would be out for the season. And not only that, they didn't have Ja Morant, of course. They also didn't have Jaren Jackson Jr. or Santi Aldama in this game. A remarkable victory. I'm going to break down all of the great performances up and down the roster. Before I do, though, just a word that if you want to support the creation of this program, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you join the Patreon, you get bonus content, some bonus episodes of Fast Break Breakfast over there. Also, you can join the Slack channel. You can join the Grits and Grinds Slack channel where we talk about the Grizzlies around the clock. Special thanks to Kevin, who signed up after the game last night. So if you want to join a community of Grits and Grinds listeners, you're going to support the creation of this program, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, this win over the Mavericks was the Grizzlies' biggest margin of victory all season. I mean, the Grizzlies used to be a team that racked up more blowouts than basically any other team, but let's not get into that right now. This 17-point win, the biggest margin of victory of the season. The Grizzlies scored 120 points, which meant they scored 120 or more in all three games of the road trip. Of course, that's the first time all season they've scored 120 or more in 3 straight games. And you got to credit just one, Desmond Bane being, maybe the best player on the court, outplaying Luka Doncic. I mean, Luka Doncic looked a little bit banged up in this one. He outplayed Kyrie Irving. Kyrie, his stat line, they're usually always so good. And in this one, it's no different. 33 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals. Can you have an empty 33 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steal game? I mean, it's not totally empty, but I don't know. I didn't feel like he was particularly threatening the Grizzlies, and credit the team, credit the whole roster for making this a comfortable victory. The Grizzlies got up early. They had a massive second quarter. They scored 39 points in the second quarter. I'm pretty sure that's their highest scoring quarter of the season. Of course, second quarters used to be the problem, or historically this season have been the problem, where we have these long offensive lulls. There was no lull in this one. The Grizzlies put together a big old run in the second quarter, powered by David Roddy. David Roddy had his own 11-0 run in this second quarter, part of an overall 20-2 run where the Grizzlies got up by 22. And then it never really got close in the second half. And you got to say, Desmond Bane carrying the load with 32 points. He loves tearing up the Dallas Mavericks. He finishes with his 11th 30-point game of the year with the 32 points. Also had 9 rebounds, 4 assists. And then Marcus Smart. So Marcus Smart was awesome. Marcus Smart leaves this game with a dislocated finger. Very strange play. I'm assuming it got hit or something before the moment it actually popped out, because it seemed like it popped out when he was celebrating a 3-point make. He put 3 fingers in the air, and then his ring finger just kind of went out of place. Very, very strange. So hopefully he's not going to be out for too long. I mean, maybe he can play in the game on Friday. I believe they said also this was not the hand that had been injured in the Pelicans game, so he's got something weird going on again on his hands. It's a shame because, I mean, not just the overall team bad injury luck, but Marcus Smart himself in this one had 23 points in 21 minutes, made 4 more three-pointers. He was 9 out of 16 from the field, and this means that in this 3-game road trip, it was the first 3-game streak of Marcus Smart's career of scoring 20 or more. That's amazing. I mean, he had that huge game against the Lakers with the 8 made threes and 29 points, but now he's gone 3 straight games with 20 or more points for the first time in his entire career. So hurry back soon, Marcus Smart. So you got the big performances from Marcus and Des, but of course there was no Marcus for the final quarter and a half, and that's where you just tip your cap to the bench. I mean, Ziaire Williams, for the 4th straight fourth quarter, had a very strong impact on the game. He finished with 14 points. You had David Roddy. He scored all of his points in that 11-0 run, but like David Roddy had a good game. John Conchar had a solid game, filling in for Santi Aldama and Jaren. Conchar gets 7 rebounds and 3 assists in his 25 minutes. And then Xavier Tillman, out of nowhere, Xavier Tillman is good again. Xavier Tillman had a double-double off the bench, 14 points and 11 rebounds. Most importantly, 6 offensive rebounds. As a team, the Grizzlies set a season high with 18 offensive rebounds. Overall, they out-rebounded the Mavericks by 21. And this 18 offensive rebound game comes a game after they had 15 offensive rebounds against the Suns. And that 15 offensive rebounds, that tied the previous season high. So the Grizzlies were getting lots of second-chance opportunities. And it's the bench where you have Conchar, Ziaire, Roddy, and Tillman all had solid games. And I mean, I didn't look it up, but that's got to be the first game all year where all 4 of those guys had a decent game at the same time. So you get the performances from Smart and Bane. Your starting lineup, without Jaren, you went with Marcus and Des, and then Vince Williams Jr., and then Luke Kennard and Bismack Biyombo. Luke Kennard, extremely efficient for the 2nd straight game. Played 23 minutes, scored 14 points on 7 field goal attempts. That'll do, Luke. He also got 4 assists, 5 rebounds, and a steal. Vince Williams Jr. in this one. 6 points, 6 rebounds, a career-high 6 assists, a career-high tying 3 steals. Kyle Anderson Memorial stat line. The Grizzlies have now won 4 of the last 5 games that Vince has started. Of course, the 3 previous wins before this one were with Ja Morant, so that stat's a little fishy. But this year, when Vince Williams Jr. plays in the regular rotation, the way I'm counting it, just looking at his game log, I say there are 18 games where he got regular minutes in the first half and second half, and the games weren't blowouts where he got to play the entire fourth quarter. I'm pretty sure it looks like there are 18 games where he played like a regular long stint in the first half, ended up with like 18 or more minutes for the game, or sometimes there's some of these games, a couple of them around 16 minutes. In those 18 games where Vince has been in the rotation, the Grizzlies are 10-8. And obviously most of those games are without Ja Morant. A large majority of those games are without Marcus Smart. I know the Grizzlies have lowered, and as a fan base, we've lowered our expectations for the season now that there's no Ja Morant. But like I think most of us said in the immediate aftermath of the Ja Morant injury, there's going to be no tanking. One, because you have Bane and Jaren and Marcus Smart, all good players. But also, this team is not as bad as they were at the beginning of the year. The start of the season was flukish. How bad they were when Marcus Smart played, I think, was a little bit of a fluke. And in those games early in the year, Vince Williams was not playing. And then, of course, you lost Marcus Smart to injury. And so those losses aren't very representative of this team. And I think they're going to be a rather competitive team. I said in my despondent reaction podcast, like I figured they'd be around a 500 team or a little bit worse for the rest of the season. And I was not stunned by this victory. I thought it would be, a reasonably competitive game. I mean, maybe I'm stunned we win by 17, but the Grizzlies outworking their opponent, that isn't that shocking. And the defense is really rounding into shape. Now, This one, they built the lead with offense. They built the lead with that huge second quarter. And in the fourth quarter, maybe things got a little bit nervous. So you're trying to give Desmond Bane a rest. Desmond Bane goes out at the start of the fourth quarter, and the Grizzlies turn the ball over on their first 2 possessions of the quarter, and immediately Taylor Jenkins has to say, no, Des, go back in there. And the Grizzlies continued struggling to take care of the basketball in the fourth quarter. They had 8 team turnovers in just the fourth quarter. They only scored 17 points in the fourth quarter, but guess what? They held the Mavericks to 20 points in the fourth quarter. And then you look back at the other 2 wins on this road trip. You held the Lakers to 19 points in the fourth quarter. You held the Suns to 18 points in the fourth quarter. This team is winning on defense. At the very least, they're salting these games away on defense. Of course, you could point to good offensive stretches for the team that maybe help you set your defense. Like in the Lakers, you made all those 3-pointers. Against the Suns, you had a decent offensive game. Against the Mavericks, you made 14 3-pointers, which is a good number for the Grizzlies. The number I like is the 37 attempts. So that's the more efficient 3-point shooting. You're not just launching threes nonstop. You're getting those points in the paint. A lot of that is because of the offensive rebounds. So you're seeing this formula of better offense, maybe some 3-point regression in your favor where the shots are going in. You're getting points in the paint because of the offensive rebounding. And then you throw in the defense is shutting down the other team in the fourth quarters. And I credit a lot of that, or some of that, to the fact that you have Jaren in there. You also have this guy, Vince Williams Jr., who was a discovery for this season. He's playing really, really well. And then in the previous 2 games, you had Marcus Smart. You did not have Marcus Smart for the fourth quarter of this one, but you hang on. And now on that road trip, your fourth quarter defensive rating is 81. And obviously that's a small sample size based on 3 fourth quarters. But you're holding your opponent, or if you hold your opponent to 20 points or fewer in 3 straight fourth quarters, in 3 straight wins, you're doing something absolutely right. And honestly, this is sort of what we expected from the Grizzlies in games without Ja Morant. In the preseason, my expectation, and I explicitly said so, was the Grizzlies were going to be amazing at defense in the games that Ja Morant missed due to his suspension. Well, now Ja's injured, going to have shoulder surgery out for the whole year. This is more what we expected. Again, the beginning of the year, a little bit flukish. The Grizzlies right now are 5th in defensive rating since December 1st. That's an arbitrary cutoff, but last 15 games, last 18 games, the Grizzlies are a top 10 defense. They're ranked 5th on NBA.com. Cleaning the glass, a little less rosy when they filter out the garbage time. Cleaning the glass has the Grizzlies 8th in defensive rating since December 1st. But again, that was the expectation. So I don't think that is some weird aberration or a flukish number. I thought this team would be good at defense. And we're seeing specifically, I'm going to get carried away maybe with the some net rating stuff right now, but you're seeing it specifically just Vince and Marcus Smart playing together. They haven't played that many minutes together, but so far it has been excellent. And your expectation, your hope for Vince Williams Jr. and Marcus Smart lineups, you'd hope they'd be great at defense and great at forcing turnovers. And guess what? The numbers say they are great at forcing turnovers and they're great at defense. They're forcing turnovers on 16% of the opponent's possessions. That's in the 90th percentile, according to Cleaning the Glass. They have a plus 17 net rating. That obviously is awesome. This is only 197 possessions, so very, very small sample size. But so far, so good. And then you sprinkle in last year's Defensive Player of the Year. You look at the 3-man lineup ratings of Vince Williams Jr., Marcus Smart, and Jaren Jackson Jr. together. They currently have an 87 defensive rating. Just 127 possessions, very, very small, but so far, so good. And the Grizzlies, I think, are going to have to hang their hat on this, on the defensive end for the rest of the season. Now, obviously, it's not going to be all this rosy. You're probably not going to be able to keep pulling off these awesome wins, but I do think the Grizzlies are finding some chemistry, and as long as Bane can handle this primary role, as long as Marcus Smart keeps playing, he can't keep playing this well. I don't think. It's funny that he's gone from he went from missing 16 straight 3-pointers coming into the Lakers game, and now in his past 3 games, he's made 16 threes. So the three-point shot is falling for Marcus. He's also making, huge impact plays on both ends of the court. Yes, the threes are going in, but like this one, Marcus had 2 awesome plays in the first half where he got steals. The first one was a fun highlight play where, he got the ball. Luka Doncic's pass was thrown off of his leg. Luckily, we did not get a kickball call, and then he made that fun behind-the-back pass to Bismack. His second steal of the game was an important play, I felt like. The Mavericks had bounced back from the Grizzlies' big 20-2 second-quarter run. They were kind of making it a game, and then right before halftime, Marcus Smart gets a steal that leads to a Ziaire alley-oop from John Conchar, and that pushed the Grizzlies' lead back up to 15 going into halftime. So I thought that was a very important play. Let's dial in a little bit more with some of the bench players. You had this amazing game from Xavier Tillman. So re-emphasizing 14 points, 11 rebounds. It was easily his best game since like the first 2 games of the year. I still don't know why he had been so bad. Like he had been shooting 33% over the past 2 months. I don't know how that's possible, but this is not a surprising performance from Tillman. I would say how he'd been playing since December. That's the surprising performance. Like, why has it been so bad? So hopefully we see more of that. The Ziaire Williams game, it's not just that he made 6 out of 9 field goal attempts. I mean, that's great. It's the shots he took. I'm going to give him a thumbs up on 8 of his 9 field goal attempts. What's pretty funny, and I joked about this on social media, like I want Ziaire just to shoot layups and dunks and alley-oops and such right at the basket. I want to shoot corner threes. The only shot where I was like, what are you doing, Ziaire? It was an above the break wing 3-pointer with 12 seconds on the shot clock. He wasn't particularly open and he airballed it. So the one shot where I was like, what are you doing? And then he shot it and he airballed it. And I was just kind of like, I don't know, doing the once upon a time in a Hollywood meme of pointing at my TV. Like, why? But everything else was good. His other above the break 3-pointer, it was with 4 seconds on the shot clock. I didn't love it. I thought he still could have maybe attacked. He bricked it badly, but everything else, shots right at the rim. And then he made big corner 3-pointers. Both of his corner hits were huge, very important. And he's been a part of winning time now, playing big fourth quarter minutes in all 3 of these wins. So the Ziaire Williams arrow is pointed straight up right now. Very, very encouraging games. Also beyond just making the shots, I don't think I said it yet. It's energy and hustle plays that he's been making. The steal he got in this one, and he's made a few of these plays where he makes a deflection. He knocks the ball away from his man, and then he's the first one to the ground, and we're seeing that athleticism in a different way. He's not jumping straight up in the air, catching a lob. He's diving quickly to get on the ground and get the basketball. Those are winning plays that we are seeing from Ziaire. Now, let's revel a little bit in this second quarter run. I didn't go into explicit detail. I feel like it needs a little bit of explicit detail just for fun. The David Roddy 11-0 run, it was so cool, and I obviously loved how much this run had Vince Williams Jr.'s fingers all over it. So Vince, 2 out of 8 from the field, who cares? Made 2 big threes, but also those career-high 6 assists, 6 rebounds, the 3 steals. In this run, you had, first of all, the Grizzlies' second unit, like Bane off the court. The second unit was holding serve. They kept the lead. A lot of that was due to Luke Kennard making several great plays in this stretch. But then Roddy starts this 11-0 run. He gets to the foul line. Then you see Vince Williams Jr. get an offensive rebound, who feeds it to David Roddy, who gets that monster dunk over Josh Green. The Mavericks were a little confused about who was supposed to be guarding Roddy, and Roddy gets the big poster dunk. Then the next possession, Roddy gets to the line on a straight line drive. The following defensive possession, Vince Williams gets a steal, assists Roddy in the corner for a 3-pointer. The next Mavs possession, Vince gets his second consecutive steal by helping off of his man and picking Luka's pocket, feeds it to Roddy on the fast break. Roddy gets fouled, makes his free throws. That wrapped up the Roddy 11-0 run. But then the next possession, Vince gets a defensive rebound, comes down, hits a three off a great Tillman assist. That assist being an inside-out play where Tillman had the ball in the paint, kicks it out to an open Vince. That shot by Vince put the Grizzlies up 22. So that was maybe the most thrilling section of the basketball game. I mean, yeah, it was great when Bane took over at the end of the third quarter and carried it home, but I'm going to definitely highlight all those Vince Williams Jr. moments. Anyways, let's go over a few more stats to wrap up. This was the Grizzlies' 18th consecutive game as a team to have 10 or more made threes. That extends their franchise record. The Grizzlies are now 11-10 on the road. Frankly, that's just weird. I mean, why are they so awful at home? No one knows. 11-10 on the road. That's the 5th best road record in the NBA. Making this win maybe even more surprising, no Ja, no Jaren, of course, no Brandon, no Steven, no Santi. It's that the Grizzlies had lost 10 of their last 11 games against Luka Doncic. So despite no Jaren Jackson Jr., despite no Ja Morant, they are able to get the win over Luka. Notably, Luka seemed a little banged up, and also the Mavericks were without Derek Lively. If you remember the last loss against the Mavericks, Derek Lively had something like 16 rebounds and destroyed the Grizzlies. Well, no Derek Lively in this one, and it ended up being a particularly good matchup for a undersized Grizzlies team. The Mavericks had no bigs that were any kind of threat, and they opted to match up with the Grizzlies and play small ball. Like the Mavs had Markieff Morris playing the 5 at times. Like they have Dwight Powell in as like an only big. That's something that Grizzlies can handle. And you're not getting punished with your Vince Williams Jr. at power forward or your David Roddy at power forward minutes. Sean Coleman noted this was the Grizzlies' best shooting half of the season on 2-pointers. The first half was. The Grizzlies made 20 out of 30 of their 2-point attempts. So they were getting in the paint. They were actually making 2-pointers. You get solid contributions up and down the lineup, and that is how the Grizzlies are able to get out of Dallas with a win. And now you're just still 4 games or so out of the play-in. I mean, I think this Grizzlies team is going to be competitive the rest of the way. It's going to be a long uphill climb, but what an encouraging win. And I guess we can close the show with thinking more about the Ja Morant absence and maybe following up on some immediate reaction thoughts that I had and other people had as far as what they might do with the roster. Of course, the big decision is, you have to make a roster spot for Vince Williams Jr. I don't think that the Grizzlies are going to not do that. I saw someone being like, well, now that Ja Morant's hurt, we can just put this off to the offseason. No, I don't think so. I don't think we're going into restricted free agency for Vince Williams Jr. What kind of contract he's going to get? I have no idea. No clue what kind of contract Vince Williams Jr. would settle for. If I'm Vince Williams Jr. and his agent, I'm not settling for that 4-year minimum hinky special with the last 2 years non-guaranteed. This is the type of contract that Kenneth Lofton Jr. signed. I feel like he's put together enough tape to show other teams that you're not taking a minimum deal. So whatever the contract's going to be, I'm not sure. I mean, the Grizzlies are limited in what they can offer him with maybe they give him the remainder of their MLE that they have. I don't know exactly what that is. But it's more than the minimum. So that's an interesting thing to figure out. How do you make that roster spot? I mean, maybe now you basically play it to the trade deadline, and if you can't make a consolidation trade or a trade where you essentially give away Conchar or Tillman or LaRavia, the simplest thing would just be just cut Bismack Biyombo, and then possibly you use the two-way spot you've opened up by adding Vince Williams Jr. to the real roster to try and find a fill-in big. I also still think, why is Jacob Gilyard around? I mean, I know he's great for the hustle. That seems like another avenue where you can maybe find some help as another ball handler and also another big. But then thinking of big time roster moves as far as accepting trade offers for Marcus Smart or something. I said previously you should be open to it and you should probably shop around, and maybe this is recency bias with the incredible 3 games in a row that Marcus Smart has had. But the one thing that I do feel pretty firmly about is you can't trade away Marcus Smart if you're not getting players back to help. both this season and next season, because if you trade away Marcus Smart and his $20 million a year salary, it's going to be hard to replace that. Like, you're not going to trade it just for picks. Like, if you wanted to say, hey, we need to just get as many future assets in the door, this season is lost. So like, if the Kings or the Knicks or someone says, hey, we will give you 2 first-round picks for Marcus Smart, and you're like, you know what? I sent out 2 first-round picks. Maybe that's pretty good. We can restock the first-round pick cupboard. The problem with those deals is, like, in like a Knicks situation, you'd be getting Evan Fournier back, and then you would honestly want to pick up Fournier's team option for next year, just so you don't lose that salary slot for nothing. Because with the contracts on the books, with the Bane extension and with Jaren's contract and Ja's contract, and like if you keep Luke Kennard and then you have Brandon and Stevens' salaries, you're over the cap. If in that theoretical situation, you're like, all right, we traded for Evan Fournier to get 2 first-round picks, and now we let Evan Fournier go, you can't replace what Marcus Smart did. You can't replace that salary slot that Marcus Smart has. So it makes it, I think, unlikely that the Grizzlies do actually trade Marcus Smart, because when you focus on next season and the year after and you say, how are we going to be the best team as like we can be with a healthy Ja Morant and, fingers crossed, a healthy Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, you got to say, who are the players we have? And if you make a trade with the future in mind about like including Marcus Smart, you have to say, well, who's the player better than Marcus Smart or as good as Marcus Smart that we're going to get back in that spot? And that's where it becomes, I think, unlikely you can do any better. So even if the Kings are like, we'll give you Kevin Huerter, Davion Mitchell, and a first-round pick, which I honestly, fair price, probably a fair price for Marcus Smart. I don't know if you do that, because you probably think the Marcus Smart fit, the contribution to the team for the remainder of this year, and then, of course, next year, most importantly, next year, is probably not as good or worth just picking up an extra first-round pick. So those are my thoughts at this moment. Anyways, if you want to support this show, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Again, thanks to everyone who's already done so. Do me a favor and subscribe to the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel if you don't do that already. Anyways, hope you guys have a great Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.